All right, these are car brands that no longer exist. And at the end of the video, I'll tell you about car brands that I personally don't believe that they deserve to go extinct. So we're going to start with different sections. We're going to go from American cars to European cars to Asian cars. So the first brand I want to start with is Pontiac. Now, everyone knows this brand. It's pretty iconic. And GM discontinued this brand in 2010 because they were just going broke. In other words, nobody was buying their cars. In honor of Pontiac, let's look at one of their cars together. Here we have the 1969 Pontiac GTO with a 6.6-liter V8, 370 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 6.2 seconds, top speed of 125, and the price was $3,000, which is about 27K today. Now, this orange car looks pretty old, and it was just definitely a car of its time. Like, look at that thing, man. Now, the next brand we have is Oldsmobile. Now, it's in the name. This is one of the oldest car brands in the USA, and it was shut down by GM in 2004. And honestly, if you take a look at their cars, I think they were pretty stylish, in my opinion. I mean, look at they're kind of groovy, and a boss would drive this. Come on, man. Now, one of their cars I want to talk about is the 1966 Oldsmobile Tornado. I don't know how to say it. Has a 7-liter V8, 385 horsepower, 475 pound-feet of torque, 0 to 60 in 7.5 seconds, which is the same as my Camry. And at the time, it came out for $4,700, which is $45,000 today. This was the first ever front-wheel drive American muscle car. Now, the next brand I want to talk about is Mercury. Now, this is Ford's kind of luxury brand. Think of it as Lexus for Ford. But unfortunately for Ford, it shut down because nobody was buying these cars. So let's take a look at one of their cars. Again, we have the 1949 Mercury 8 Coupe with a 4.2-liter flathead V8, 110 horsepower, 200 pound-feet of torque, and 0 to 60 from now to eventually. Top speed at 100 miles per hour. It released for around $2,000, so $2,400 today. And honestly, car's kind of badass. I'm not gonna lie. Now we have this really famous brand. Now Plymouth. Now you're probably sitting here thinking, what is Plymouth? I have never heard of this company. Wait until I show you their car. Now this was a Chrysler brand that lasted from 1928 to 2001. And if you want to know what happened in 2001, they just ran out of money. Now the car I really want to mention, and oh my god, if you see this car, I'm not even gonna say the name of the car. Just look at it, you know exactly what it is. Boom. What is the first thing you think of? Exactly, cars. The 1970 Plymouth Superbird with a 7-liter Hemi V8, 390 horsepower, 490 pound-feet of torque, 0 to 60 5.9 seconds, top speed apparently over 200 miles per hour, and the price was around $4,000 in 1970, so $30,000 today approximately, which is absolutely crazy. Such a good price. And on top of that, it's also in the movie Cars. Next, we have a very boring car brand, and that's Saturn. It lasted from 1985 to 2001, and one of their cars is a 1991 Saturn S Series, and the specs on this car are completely pitiful, okay? So this car had a 1.9-liter inline-4 engine with 85 horsepower. I think I have more horsepower than this engine. It had 110 pound-feet of torque, 0 to 60 miles per hour in eventually, which is what I wrote down in the script, which I can't believe I wrote that. When it came out in 1991, it was $10,000, so around $20,000 today. It was like a Corolla. Next, we want to talk about this car brand that kind of disappeared, and we're talking about Hummer. Now, it went from 1992 to 2010, but then it came back recently as an EV brand. I mean, look at that brand new Hummer. And I want to talk about the 2006 Hummer H1 Alpha. Okay, this had a 6.6-liter Duramax turbo diesel V8 with 300 horsepower, 520 pound-feet of torque, 0 to 60 in 13 seconds with a top speed of 90 miles per hour. And when it came out, it was about $139,000, which is $200K today. And it was pretty much based off of the military Humvee, but it was really big, heavy, had a horrible gas mileage. But celebrities helped make it popular. So you can see this car. I have a toy of it personally. It's such an iconic car. Now we have moved on to the European brands. So first of all, we have Saab. Now this one is a pretty popular brand. Everyone knows this brand. It was a Swedish brand that just didn't have enough money and they just shut down. Now I want to talk about Rover. It's a British brand that lasted from 1904 to 2005. So their car I want to talk about is the 95 Rover 75. Had a 2.5-liter V6, 175 horsepower, 177 pound-feet of torque, 0 to 60 in 9.2 seconds. So in 3 days, 2 nights, and 5 years. Top speed 130 miles per hour, and it came out in 1995 for $20K, which is $35K today. But this next one is actually pretty cool. They have this company called Austin. It's a British car brand that lasted from 1905 to 1989. It merged into Rover, and they created the 1959 Austin Mini. Now this thing looks like the OG Mini Cooper. Look at that thing, bro. It looks like something Mr. Bean would drive. Now the engine had 848cc inline 4, 34 horsepower. Okay, I think I have more horsepower in one thigh than this whole car has. It had 44 pound-feet of torque, so that thing wasn't gonna pull or tow nothing. 0 to 60 in 20 seconds. You know how many TikToks you can watch from the time it takes you to go from 0 to 60? A top speed of 75 miles per hour. And when it came out in 1959, it was out for $500, which is $12,000 today. This car is not worth $12,000 today. I can assure you that. Now we have the Asian car brands. We have have Daihatsu, and lasted from 1907 to around 2013 when they stopped selling in Europe and they just decided to stick in Japan. Next company I want to talk about is Isuzu, I don't know. They still make trucks, but they stopped making cars. The next one I want to talk about, you guys may know this, Prince Motors, okay? These guys were from 1952 to 1966, and they didn't die. They actually merged with Nissan to create the legendary Skyline. And one of their cars is the 1969 Prince Skyline GTR. 2-liter inline six, 160 horsepower, 130 pound-feet of torque, 0 to 68 seconds, top speed of 125. And at the time, it was sold for $14K, which is in 1969, so it's about $100K today. And this was the very first GTR. Next one I want to talk about is Daewoo. It lasted from 37 to 2011. It was a South Korean brand that got merged into GM Korea. Next we have Suzuki. Now I know you guys know of this car, this brand. It still exists, but it left US market in 2012. And the car I want to talk about today is 1991 Suzuki Cappuccino. Now you look at this little Mazda Miata looking thing. Looks like a little toy RC car, like those little things that people that they buy for kids, those fake cars, and then they sit and they drive around. That's what it looks like. It's had a 660cc turbo inline 3 with 63 horsepower, 63 pound-feet of torque, 0 to 60 in 8.5 seconds, top speed of 85 miles per hour. And in 1991, it came out to $12K. So out of this whole list of cars that I think should never have disappeared, the first one is Austin. Even though it merged into Rover, they made a very iconic looking car. That was pretty cool.